Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sherlock. Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture.
Sherlock, sure listen.
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 Sherlock, sure listen. Benjamin Colby, you frailing son of a dren. There's no news this week. I don't know how to do my normal intro. Look, we're recording on a Sunday, unusually, because Benjamin is otherwise engaged. So there's probably going to be huge popular culture news either on Sunday evening or Monday. So there's none now, though. So, I don't know. Deal with it.
Here we are, floating in space, ladies and gentlemen. But sure, listen, fret not. Because floating in space is exactly what we're here to talk about.
Oh! How clever.
It's the return of arguably our best segment, the Quintessential.
What's that?
It's where we ask you, the tinterwebs.
The people on the internet, yeah. The
Yeah,
netizens.
on the internet. The netizens, if you will.
Yeah.
That's what all the cool kids call you.
Yeah.
The netizens. What you think the soul of a particular good old-fashioned show is, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the past, we've covered various different things, like the X-Files.
The X-Files.
And
Buffy Vampire.
Buffy Vampire. And
Oh, something else. What was it?
Zone of Twilight.
Twilight Zone. I forgot.
Twilight Zone. But, ladies and gentlemen, you can find all those episodes linked below in the description to this very episode.
Oh, good.
But this week, we are taking a look at a forgotten gem.
I didn't forget it.
You didn't forget it, Michael, but you don't forget anything, you steel-trapped son of a gun.
I've got a mind like a steel... What's the word again?
You see what he did there, ladies and gentlemen. See what he did there. Oh,
my
for
mic
that
as
kind
well.
of top-class podcasting, ladies and gentlemen, you should come back here. I haven't explained what we're doing. We're here to talk about Farscape.
Farscape, yes, Farscape. Farscape. I didn't forget it. I remember Farscape, the 1999 Australia Sci-Fi co-production. Muppets in Space, Benjamin, which isn't what it's called when they sent us to space. But a popular television program from the 1990s to early 2000s.
Michael, this is my first exposure to Farscape properly. We've done a kind of a scan of it in the past for an episode, Michael, but this was my first sit down. We did, yeah. We talked about it before on the podcast. And I believe that devolved into just lauding Claudia Black.
Benjamin.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Claudia Black?
Oh, bloody hell.
Bloody hell.
Bloody hell.
Bloody
but yeah,
hell.
I mean, it's in her name, Michael. Claudia, Laud. It's in there. You know?
Very good. You can't spell slaughter without laughter.
But Michael, I've come back to it now, many years later, I think, for us, Michael, because we're old and we've been doing this far too long.
I'm 42 soon.
I'm 34 soon. It's game over.
So young.
It's game over. So anyway, come here to me. We've come back to it, Michael, and we decided to ask the interwebs what their 5 quintessential episodes were. And
Yes.
as usual,
Yes.
pretty good response.
Fucking great stuff, Benjamin. So the whole point of the quintessential is everyone and their sister. BuzzFeed. Comic book resources. BuzzFeed. What's that one where the woman says, "Welcome to Watch Mojo"? Watch Mojo. BuzzFeed, yes. They've all done what are the best 5 episodes of anything. What are the best 5 Buffy episodes ever? The Body. Oh, once more with feeling. Oh, you've nailed it, boys. But that's not what we're doing, Benjamin. We're asking the dedicated fans of these properties to tell us not what are the 5 best episodes, not what are your favorite 5. Fuck. Not what are your I can't say it. You say it.
Welcome back to Sherlock, Listen, the podcast where we can't say a damn thing right, and that's why we don't get to make listicles.
No listicles for us. We're not asking
5 quintessential episodes. We don't want the 5 favorites, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
We want the 5 je ne sais quoi. Quintessence episodes. The things that encapsulate the soul of the show, the character dynamics, the stellar writing plots, the tiny little characteristics that make that show that show.
What are the episodes of this show that you would not put on a pedestal as the best episodes ever, but that you would put into a vial and say, this is the distilled essence. You would be in your laboratoire and you would say, this is the distilled essence of this show.
But in a French accent.
Yeah, this is the distilled essence of this show.
Very good. Very good.
In the laboratoire. And that's what we're after. And I tell you what, Benjamin.
Yeah.
We've always got interesting discussions around this when we've done the quintessential, or as you say, the quintessence of on previous shows. And one of the most interesting things for us as the hosts of this nonsense is seeing, will there be a consensus or will it be wildly disagreeing? So, for example, in the past, we did the X-Files, and it was pretty damn easy to come up with the top 5 quintessential X-Files episodes. Not a consensus, Benjamin. I'm not saying everyone who watches the X-Files has the same 5 quintessential episodes.
Because they don't.
They do not. But there was quite close to a consensus on what they were, and it was fairly close to a list of the best episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twilight Zone, similar. It was pretty easy to boil down a top 5 quintessential Twilight Zone episodes. And interestingly there was a kind of an awareness that they're not the best ones, but they were the most Twilight Zone-y.
Yes, they were.
But because Farscape is such a weird-ass thing...
It's so weird.
And because it means so many different things to many different people, and because it's so genre-bending and also a melange, to use the French, a melange of genres.
Very French podcast this week, Michael.
It is. It's a very French podcast, Benjamin. We should have called it...
Sure, écoutez.
Yeah.
Avec isn't right. Hang on. What is it? How do you say that?
Let's not get into how to translate Sherlock to listen into French. Benjamin, what was I saying? Oh, melange. A melange de genre. Because it's such a melange de genre.
Yes.
Oh my God, the episode suggestions that we got for the quintessential Farscape episode were many and varied, and to my mind, this was the hardest one that we've done so far to pick 5.
Michael,
what?
Broad ranging doesn't even begin to cover it.
Now, having said that, there are a couple that come up pretty often. I'd say there's kind of a consensus around maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then the remaining 2 really depends on what you get from Farscape.
Yeah. So that's fair.
So, Ben, it's up to us to summarise that for the listeners, I guess.
I suppose.
I suppose. Is that what we do?
Suppose.
Is it?
I mean, is that what we do? Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's
or we could just do more bad jokes if you want. We could just do more bad French.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy bad French and terrible jokes, you might enjoy this podcast. And what you can do to make these 2 old men, 34 and nearly 40 respectively,
I'm not
happy.
nearly 40, I'm 42.
He's nearly 40, just in the opposite direction.
Opposite direction. Very good and complimentary.
He doesn't look it, ladies and gentlemen. Many people who watch this podcast on YouTube may find that he's supposed to be the younger one of this podcast.
It's because of my my beard that's very youthening.
His beard and rippling muscellus, ladies and gentlemen.
Very youthening. What's the word for youthening, Ben? What word am I lacking?
Rejuvenating?
There? No. What's the word for
invigorating?
No,
youthful.
Thank you. Youthful? No. What's the word to mean making you look younger? There isn't
it's
one.
Infantilizing.
Oh, that's it. That's the one. Benjamin.
Yeah.
Speaking of fetishes, though, a lot of the weird shit in this show is the writers barely contained fetishes. It's fabulous. At times I was watching some of these episodes and going, they let bloody Chris Claremont in, didn't they? They got him
Chris
in.
Claremont was a consultant on this show.
He was sniffing around.
My favourite meme to this, Michael, was I looked it up on the Farscape Reddit. Hello, Farscape Reddit.
Hello. Good eggs.
Good eggs, the lot of them. But I looked this up on the Farscape Reddit, Michael, and Farscape, Australia's answer to leather and whips in Australia 101. And I was like, yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
A little bit.
We'll get into it.
Like,
Benjamin,
we'll get into it. Yeah.
let's assume that you've done the research, though, and tell us before we get into the I think we're going to end up talking about more than 5 episodes, and I'm not convinced we're going to come down on a quintessential 5. But before we do, you have 3.5 minutes to tell us what even is Farscape in all and anyways.
So, Farscape, I suppose, Michael, is, as you said, a goddamn melange of space tropes.
Un mélange de genre.
Yeah, with a heaping dash of bisexuality sprinkled on top.
Oh, it's just, I think it's pansexuality, Ben, rather than
I don't know what it is, Michael, but it's in there.
Everyone's fucking.
There's a good, solid amount of proto-2000s snappy dialogue in there, Michael. This is Buffy dialogue in space. And we'll get into that a little bit on it. I have some very strong opinions about this one way or the other. But the essential plot, Michael, is John Crichton.
Oh!
Astronaut.
Ben,
yes.
Ben, I'm going to cut across you because I forgot. I have a conceit for this. But
okay, go on.
I want to tell you and the listeners this first. Just so everyone knows that this is idiocy on purpose. So what I'm planning to do, Benjamin, for this whole episode is to constantly refer to him as Michael Crichton, the writer of Jurassic Park.
Okay,
and then
so
you'll have to correct me each time and say that that's wrong, just so you know.
Okay, well that's good. I'll do that then, will I?
You work with that, yeah.
Okay, I'll work with that, but I get to say it normally.
You can say it normally.
Okay.
I'm going to be the one who's confused, but for comedy purposes, I'm not really confused.
Okay, that's very, very good. So, John Crichton,
Yeah, go on.
is an astronaut from our neck of the woods, particularly not our neck of the woods, Michael, Florida.
Florida, yeah. I thought he was the writer of Jurassic Park.
No, Michael, you're thinking of Michael Crichton.
Oh, yeah. That's
writer
because
of
that's
Jurassic Park.
I see the mistake.
See what you did there?
Yeah.
See what you did there? Yeah. So, he is a bit of a genius, Michael. He's Commander John Crichton, first of all.
Space Commander.
He's John Crichton NASA, if you like. And he is a bit of a genius, but also a bit of a badass, Michael. He develops a brand new theoretical way to kick off interstellar travel for Homo sapiens.
I hope his dad approves.
His dad does approve, Michael. In fact, he's partially doing this to get out from under his dad's shadow, because his dad, Michael, knew Yuri Gagarin.
No, yeah. Yuri Gagarin. That's him, yeah.
Yeah,
the writer
that
of Jurassic World, Yuri Gagarin.
So it's heavily hinted at that his father is part of the original kind of space race era of Americans, and he's been trying to get out from under his shadow. So he's come up with a brand new way, Michael, to slingshot using the Earth's orbit in a specially designed spacecraft that he designed and built himself called the Minnow.
What a genius.
What a genius, Michael. He's like Reed Richards and Ben Grimm rolled into one.
And he's played by TV's own Ben Browder.
Ben Browder, Michael, who should be much bigger than he is.
Yeah.
Having watched this show.
It's kind of a shame, isn't it? I like Ben Browder. I really like him in this, and I really liked him in Stargate SG-1 as well. I think Ben Browder had the potential to be a much bigger star, but it hit a little bit late in life for him. I don't know.
Ridiculous, Michael.
I don't know why.
He should be so much bigger than he is.
He's so good.
So much bigger.
Although his stage direction in almost every one of the episodes that I watched might as well have been Michael Crichton, the author Michael Crichton, put down your laptop and stop writing the follow-up Jurassic World, because you're on an alien planet and you don't understand anything that's going on. So what I want you to do is overreact comically to everything.
Please and thank you.
Yeah, and he says everything, and they go yes. So then one of his shipmates comes in and says, "Good morning, Crichton," and he says, "Oh, good morning, is it? But I'm on a spaceship." You're like, "Oh God, take it down a notch, John."
That's quite accurate. This is if Nicolas Cage, Michael, was given the role of astronaut in space. And the more this series continues, this is my favorite thing. John Crichton's inner turmoil is given glorious moments throughout this series. Season 1 is a classic Dorothy in Oz situation where John Crichton is kind of finding his feet as he goes along. And then season 2, Michael, John Crichton develops an entirely imaginary friend to deal with the trauma that this has caused him.
Friend might be a bit of a strong word.
Yeah. Sorry, internal foil to deal with all of the trauma that he's kind of been put through. And it just continues. He just keeps becoming more and more Nicolas Cage as the series continues.
It's so funny.
Fab.
It's so funny.
good.
I watched some of these episodes and went, how did this man have the patience and mental capacity to sit down and design a spaceship? Because he's so busy overreacting to everything. There's some episodes about alien influences that cause people to overreact. And I was watching them going, everyone else is overreacting. He's toned it down a bit.
So, I mean, there's a few... Yeah, that's true. There's a few different ways this could happen. So, first of all, Michael, this was developed by a guy called Rockne S. O'Bannon.
Oh, that sounds like a made-up space name.
Heck of a name, Michael. And it was pitched originally as a show called Space Chase.
Space Chase!
But in Australian, so it was Space Chase.
Mate.
Space Chase, mate. And Space Chase was the original kind of idea behind this. And the way it was kind of pitched was, let's do this, but let's do it with practical effects. So Rockne S. O'Bannon pitched this to none other than the Jim Henson studio, Michael.
Jim Henson, the masters of Muppets and prosthetic effects.
And puppets. And boy, oh boy, did this pay off, Michael. We'll get into it as we go through the episodes. But it does this great job, Michael, of completely destabilizing any idea we have of the term alien. This is the first time I've watched a show and gone, oh, these are actual aliens. This isn't a human with 2 hours in the prosthetic chair before they got up. This is a fucking alien. This is weird as shit.
Now, some of the main characters are... Let's talk about the characters a little bit before we go on. Because it is your classic, one of my favourite genres, Ben, bunch of weirdos in space having to team up together.
It's classic.
So you've got Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic Park and the world's biggest overreactor to literally everything. Yeah. And then he ends up with a motley crew of aliens, including... Benjamin, I'm so glad I didn't watch this in 1999 when I was 17, because I think Claudia Black in 1999 would have altered the trajectory of my life. I think I would have just stayed in and watched this.
Yeah.
So
Aeryn's son is her character, Michael, and...
It's fine. And it was fine to talk like this in the 90s. It's not as socially acceptable now. But this is retroactive perving. And then... So she's the classic tough nut in space who John is eventually going to have to crack so that they can fall in love and do a big kiss. And we know that. That's the whole point, Benjamin. We know that from episode 1. Then you've got the other crew members at the start. You've got Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah, also known as Dargo.
Yeah, Dargo. But, Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation. Great actor. I'm not taking a shot at the actor. He does a great job, but the character starts out pretty much as Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation, with even more uncomfortable makeup for the actor.
Anthony Simcoe plays that, Michael, is the name of the actor, and he actually gave up acting since his last acting credit was in 2014. He's now Dr. Anthony Simcoe.
Is he really? Doctor of what?
Well, Doctor of Creative Industries. Now, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, not a real doctor.
But now what he does is he offers leadership and interpersonal intelligence coaching.
Does he wear the makeup? Because I'd go if he wore the makeup.
I was kind of hoping that it would be him. It's not, sadly. He's pretty normal. He's now kind of a gym bro. He's a much older man, obviously. But his entire internet presence now is gym content.
He's a big guy. Big muscular guy. Much bigger than Michael Dorn, I reckon.
Much bigger than Michael Dorn, you reckon. But yeah, he's there as a Worf. Probably the most interesting inversion of a classic Star Wars trope is Counselor Troy, who's played in this by a character called Jan. And the only difference between her and Troy from Star Trek Next Generation is she's actually useful.
Yeah, she's useful and blue. So
blue.
She is pretty much your classic Star Trek alien, though. If she's a normal woman, but blue.
Yeah, she's a normal woman, but blue.
You know what's great about her, though, Ben?
Go on.
They let an older woman be sexy on television in the year 2000.
Yeah, I mean, look, it Michael, I won't lie, it worked for me.
You're fucking unstoppable, though, Ben. And then,
So she was played by Virginia Hay.
Hey now.
Hold on. Whoa.
Hey.
Hey now. Virginia Hay plays her, and yeah, she's very interesting. She's part of an anarchist society of pleasure-seeking empath occultists almost.
Yeah, she's a weird sex priest, basically.
Essentially, and she's there, and she's pretty interesting. That character was kind of an interesting one to watch find their feet, because initially they lean far too heavily into, oh, this woman's just an exhibitionist. This woman's just a space exhibitionist. Yeah. And they kind of tone that down in later episodes and go towards the spiritual end of the spectrum.
Boo.
But initially they're really going for, watch this pilot episode and get involved. There's some sexy stuff going on here.
Speaking of Pilot, Benjamin.
Yeah.
The other character is Pilot.
Yeah.
Who's
a character.
Big Jim Henson Muppet. Very soft voiced character, quite feminine, hilariously voiced by the actor who's also at the same time playing the main villain.
Yes, it's Pygam, isn't it? That fella, I can't remember his full name. The fellow who plays Scorpius, Wayne Pygam.
No, it's not. It's the guy
or is
who
it
plays
Caius?
Crace. Yeah,
Caius.
it's the same guy who plays him.
Is it? I didn't know that, Michael. That's blown my mind.
Lanny Tupo. He's a great character. Pilot's fabulous. A full puppet, full-on Oscar the Grouch puppet.
He's a full Henson.
As a main character, and it's fabulous. And Pilot's fused to the bioship. The bioship, of course, is Moya. Everyone's second favourite bioship after the bioship in that other weird psychosexual sci-fi nightmare from the late 90s.
The Authority.
No, the European one. What was that one called? We watched it years ago. It was awful.
Oh, wait, which one?
The one with Kai and...
Oh.
What was that one called?
Is that the one with Cara Delevingne?
No, not Cara Delevingne, Benjamin. It was the weird psychosexual bioship sci-fi thing from the Sci-Fi channel, and there was a guy with a bouffant haircut and a sex woman.
No. How do I not remember this, Michael? I
Okay,
feel like this should be seared into my brain.
Anyway, you hated it. You talk about the next the next character while I look.
Moya is the ship. In many senses, Michael, I just mentioned the Authority there, but a lot of it has the Authority's DNA or vice versa. Warren Ellis was either very inspired by this, or this was very inspired by something to do with Warren Ellis, or maybe both ideas just came forward at the same time, and it was one of those weird zeitgeist moments. But yeah, moving on from there, we kind of start to flesh out the cast even more. We've got the weird little toad man, Rigel, who's the comedy relief, essentially.
Rigel,
which is basically Nigel, and that's kind of what he is. He's a poncy little capitalist in space, and he's there to irritate characters more often than not. He's the one character I just couldn't get behind. I didn't find him endearing. I didn't find it fun. I was just like, get off screen, Rigel, will you?
Rigel.
Jesus. Rigel, whatever.
Ben, did you watch this on silent? Did you?
No, because when I have to come up with all these names of the actors and stuff, I have to read the names as I go, and I get them wrong as I go along. But he was played by Jonathan Hardy, Michael, who actually looks remarkably like Rigel.
Oh, no. That's a terrible thing to say about
Look at that! Like, no, hang on. Wait until my screen does this properly, because it's insane. Oh, no, I've jumped in. Hang on.
Oh, no, Ben, you're showing us your porn.
Look at that. Look at that guy.
I can't see it.
Come on, he looks exactly like him.
It's only glare on my screen. Oh, he
looks exactly like him.
Probably based on him a little bit. Ben.
Yeah.
And then there's Shanna, the teenage sex pot.
Yeah, so this is Michael, very clear Chris Claremont. This is Blade Runner. She's the character from Blade Runner. What's her name? Trix or
Fuck, we're rubbish today. I know exactly
she's in the
what
original.
you mean.
She's in the original Blade Runner, and she's exactly like her, same haircut and stuff. She's a bit like Hepzibah from the X-Men as well. I find it's the same kind of character, the exotic feral,
yes,
sex pot
There's an exotic, feral, nubile, sex teenager just backflipping around going, oh, does anybody want to smell me? I'm going to stand uncomfortably close and show my teeth.
She's played by Gigi Edgley, and she's... I don't know what she is. She exists as a plot device a few times, and then she's a love interest for Worf, not Worf, Argo, and then I don't know. Everyone has a few goes of each other, don't they? On the Moya. So it's
all very sexy. It's all very Chris Claremont. Ben, let's talk about. We're skipping a few characters, but they're the kind of main ones.
No, those are the core group, I think.
More or less. But let's talk about the episodes, because 25 minutes in, we haven't talked about a quintessential episode. The first quintessential episode, and fairly unanimously agreed as kind of core to understanding, not necessarily understanding the plot, because this is kind of half serialized, half self-contained. You can watch this out of order and still get something from episodes. Yeah. It's kind of halfway. It's kind of that era. It's of the Star Trek Voyager era, the beginning of serialization of sci-fi. But people agree, broadly speaking, that Premiere, the first episode, not called Pilot, which is probably because there was a character called Pilot and that would have been confusing, but Premiere, or Premiere, depending on where you're from, was fairly consistently picked by listeners and users on the Reddit and people on the interwebs.
Yeah, Premiere was pretty popular, Michael. And who would blame it, Michael? What a spectacle for 1999.
Now, there's not much more to say about that episode because we kind of covered it in the synopsis and the character discussions.
Sure.
It's I mean, the one thing I'd say, Ben, is it introduces us to the whole concept of the universe pretty succinctly. Because if this was a modern show, John would travel through the wormhole towards the end of episode 1.
Yeah, and we'd have sat through hours of NASA for some reason.
Hours of NASA, hours of getting to know his dad, hours of getting to know his friend TJ or JT. DT, yeah. Down to, I wonder what's his last name, Ben? Fuck?
Down to science.
Down to science, all right. We would have spent hours getting to know all of them so that we would understand his motivation to get back. But in this, and this is true across Farscape, in this it pretty much starts with, now John, let me tell you, you're such a good scientist and such a good son that you're going to do this experiment to slingshot around the Earth and travel at faster than light speeds, better than anyone ever could have. Are you slightly nervous? No, Dad, I'm not slightly nervous. Let's get on with it. I can't live in your shadow anymore. I have to establish myself. Oh, fuck, I'm in space.
Oh, hubris, you've gotten me.
Farscape, I've just done it. So, I mean, one of the things that does, Michael, is establish solid character dynamics. It also establishes the kind of people we're dealing with. Now, those characters would go on to change, in some cases, massively. Like, Jeanne is a shadow of her pilot character by the time we get to season 3. Say Premiere, because Pilot's confusing, because Pilot's another character.
Premiere. Premiere.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the case of Crichton, he's a good old boy who's in space, who happens to be very good at the sciences and the actions and whatever you're having yourself. Yeah. So much so that the final scene is him kind of recording a tape back to his papa saying, remember those rattlesnakes we were talking about, Daddy? Well, I got them now.
I got them rattlesnakes in my belly.
Got them rattlers in my belly. And one of my favorite things about this, Michael, is Ben Browder is the only American on set. Everyone else is Australian or Kiwi.
It's like watching an episode of Xena or Hercules.
And it's fabulous for one reason and one reason alone, in that it establishes the alien setting for Ben Browder so much better because he's surrounded by Australians and New Zealanders. And it's just one American in an ocean of them being like, oh, you're not from around here, mate, are you?
Yeah, no, you're not from this part of space.
But it works pretty well. Like the standout scene of that first premiere episode, Michael, I think is probably just the initial chaos of him encountering the aliens. Because one of the things I love about this, he meets them on the bridge of their ship as it's being attacked.
Yes.
And one of my favorite things about this, Michael, is they're so fucking alien. They're so different. They're so unnerving. And Jim Henson's puppets are put to spectacular use in this. They are such unsettling creatures. From the little robot boys fumbling around on the deck to bloody Rigel, to Argo himself and his weird fucking snap tongue. Like, phenomenal stuff. And then even the disgusting explanation of how he can understand them, where it's translator microbes that have colonized the base of his brain stem. And I was like, oh. And he has the perfect reaction to it. He's like, colonized brainstem? And you can just see him panicking. And I'm like, that is exactly what you would do. You would have a little meltdown. You would freak the fuck out.
Well, I personally wouldn't, Ben. I'd be very excited to be on spaceship with my friends.
Yeah, with new friends, new friendly friends. But yeah, I mean, look, it establishes all the major players. We're introduced to not Caius, what's his name? Crace? Crace, that's it.
Isn't
it
Crace?
It's Crace. No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Crace. We're introduced to the idea of the Peacekeepers. We're introduced to all of the good stuff. But Michael,
what is it?
It doesn't have any of the juicy stuff that would go on to kind of cement the rabid fan base that Farscape now has.
Exactly, Benjamin. One thing I have to talk about here is that the kind of big surprising reveal of this is when Commander Aeryn's son takes off her helmet and turns out to be
woman.
Not just a woman, but a sexy human woman. And everyone's like, no, she's a Sebacian, just like you. And he's like, I'm not a... Well, hold on, it's Ben Browder, and he all reacts. He goes, I'm not a goddamn Sebacian. I don't even know what a goddamn Sebacian is. And everyone goes, oh, take it down a notch. Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic Park. But Benjamin, I have a degree in biology. And do you know what a sebaceous gland is?
It's that stuff on your nose that produces too much oil.
Yeah, like sweat. Yeah. So see, every time I hear someone being called a Sebacian, it's like a oily, greasy, sweaty alien. Is that what we're going for here? Why did they choose that name?
I think it's supposed to be... I don't think we're supposed to enjoy Sebacians all that much because the majority of them seem to be peacekeepers.
Yeah, they're the worst.
It's a bit of a scab. An ASAB. All Sebacians are bastards kind of vibe,
yeah. But in this case, they might be.
But they might be.
They might be. Anyway, Ben, no one does a big kiss in this episode because that's way in the future.
That's way in the future. There's a little bit of hand-holding from Jean and Argo. Just being like...
Yes, which is interesting because it seems to be setting up maybe Jean and Argo. And then there's the implication that she's too old for him, which is hilarious considering Argo and Jana end up together.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a substantial age gap for a relationship on television in the year of our Lord 2002.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, Michael, from that perspective. As I said, everybody gets a go of everybody.
Everybody's riding.
Everybody's riding. And, look, it's interesting. And I think there are probably some love-hate couples around the place. But for a lot of episodes, one of the things that we got on the Reddit, Michael, was that it is a love story, essentially, between Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park, and Claudia Black.
Yeah, actress Claudia Black.
But it is essentially Aeryn and John versus the world as an underlying kind of narrative for the whole thing. But Michael, they never worry about that too much when there's a sexy space assassin that John could be getting it off with.
No.
While Aeryn has fallen off a cliff with some other tosspot.
Yeah. Oh, the Ben Colopy character, I called him.
Fuck you.
We'll get to him later. Benjamin, kind of the next episode chronologically that I think people generally consider to be one of the quintessential episodes is the season 2 episode. Don't eat them crackers. That's not what
crackers
it's called.
Crackers
don't matter. Which isn't, in the year of our Lord 2024, a racially charged term like it probably is today. This isn't about American race relations at all, Benjamin. This is about crackers.
Yes, well, it's genuinely about crackers. So I think this is possibly one of my favorites from the entire bunch that we watched. But Number one, heaping dose of Doctor Who DNA to this, because the major antagonist to this, Tralanix, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, the big boggly-headed fella.
Vampire boy. He is straight out of the Doctor Who prosthetics chair. He is a weird, ugly-buggly guy who has his own motives that we never really figure out. It's only hinted at towards the end of the episode what he was trying to do.
Well, he wants the light.
He wants the light, but, you know, it's fabulous from that perspective. But it also just cranks the acting up to 11. Like, Ben Browder just goes full Nick Cage here. He just goes for it, and it's fabulous. So it's one of my favorites as well. It's don't let weirdos that we don't know onto the ship, because that'll end badly, lads. Yeah. That'll end badly. And everybody kind of goes, oh, yeah, all right, yeah, but we're going to bring him on the ship anyway. And Ben Browder is just like, no, don't do this, guys. Yeah, don't be doing this.
Not that calmly, though. He's like, God damn it, I don't want this guy on this ship, you son of a dren.
Yeah, and he leans in. He's having a great time at all points. But this is fabulous because it showcases the ship really well as a living being. It gives us a great villain of the week arc in Trallitson, or whatever his name is.
Bugly Headman.
And it gives us a fabulous chance for the characters to kind of understand each other a little better. I love Paranoia episodes, Michael. I love the episodes that drive characters off the deep end. This is a little bit like the episode of The X-Files that we watched with the parasites. What was that?
Yes, Ice.
Yeah.
Every classic TV show has done there's something causing aggression or paranoia or changes in behavior. Star Trek The Next Generation's second or third episode is about an infestation on the ship that changes everyone's behavior. What I really think is quintessentially Farscape about this is that, unlike most shows like this, it doesn't start from a position of peace. None of them trust or like each other even before this starts. They're very reluctant allies. They're very much a ragtag bunch of weirdos who are stuck together with a broadly overarching main goal. And I was watching this thinking, this is contemporaneous nearly with Andromeda.
Except it's good.
Because Andromeda, it's funny how close the two are. They both have a Worf character. This has Khal Drogo and that has Tir Anasazi. They both have a kind of mystic space pixie girl. This has what's her name? Chiana.
Yeah,
Chiana, and that has Trance. They both have a kind of badass warrior woman. This has Aeryn's son, and that has Rebecca Valentine. It's so they both have like a human man trapped out of time or space. Yeah. It's so
in one
odd.
case it's Ben Browder, in the other case it's noted Christian fundamentalist and absolute freak nut job, bloody Kevin Sorbo.
Absolute bellend Kevin Sorbo.
Absolute bellend.
There's so much overlap between the two, and as a teen I preferred Andromeda. Now, I never really got properly exposed to Farscape, and it's not the easiest thing to pick up Farscape and go, that looks like something I might be interested in, because it's not cool. You have to embrace the weird.
Yeah. You're leaning fully into weird with this, Michael. I think, in this exact episode, Michael, we get fully what this show wanted to do, and that is the scene at the end where Ben Browder's character of John Crichton is being smeared in alien vomit to protect him from radiation burns, solar burns, where he's been strapped up with heat repellent gear, special goggles, and everything that's added to him. He's like, I don't want to wear the goggles, and then it's like, I don't want to wear alien vomit on my face, and it's fabulous. And he's just being piled up, and he stands and he raises his blade above his head in a superhero pose. They lift the music, and it cuts to the other characters, and Claudia Black delivers a completely deadpan, we're all gonna die. And I was like, this is the show. This is it right here.
Fabulous. Now, Ben,
great stuff.
You know what's odd about I know we say this a lot here, and it's probably because we're aging, but you wouldn't get away with a lot of this today.
Go on.
There's a very aggressive implied sexual assault of Chiana by Michael Crichton in this.
That scene was very strange.
Very strange. You would not be seeing people forgiving and forgetting that in a modern show. Whether under alien influence or not.
That's the crux of the end of the episode. He turns around to Jan and he says, how can we take it back? And Jan just goes, we can't. Like, we did those things in our weird, crazy state. It was not great stuff.
No, she just lay there and had orgasms, so that was fine.
She was just rolling around, having a great old time.
Anyway, yeah, great episode. Fabulous episode. Madcap. One of the better... It's just the level of Madcap that it goes is pretty mad. But the baseline of Madcap it starts from is already pretty fucking Madcap.
Mental, man. Fucking mental. And it does it so well because it establishes that character dynamic between each of the main people so well. It gets to be Madcap because it has that core of, oh no, actually I can actually see that John Crichton would do this in this situation. Or of course Jan is rolling around having orgasms on the floor. Of course she is. Of course
Benjamin.
She is. Yeah.
Another episode that came up quite often in discussions, probably the third or fourth most common, also comes from the oeuvre of what is quintessential about Farscape is that it is a madcap, no-holds-barred sci-fi.
Go on.
And another episode that comes up pretty often is the season 3 episode, Scratch and Sniff.
Scratch and Sniff. Yeah.
Fucking wild. So,
yeah, nuts.
This is a wild episode.
The aliens, Michael. The fucking aliens.
The aliens, the Chris Claremont-esque bondage, the people having their fluids drained, the fact that the whole thing is an unreliable narrator with Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park, telling the story to pilot. This was the first ever episode of Farscape that I personally saw.
Jesus Christ, what an introduction,
I
Michael.
know, right? And I saw this in my now lovely lady wife's parents' house when we were in our kind of mid to early 20s. And my friend and yours, Jim, was there with us. And we had what we look back on as a sugar party. We had packs and packs and packs of sweets and crisps and Coke. And we watched, not cocaine, Coca-Cola. And we watched the entire...
Relax, everyone.
Everyone calm down. We watched the entire series of Firefly. And it was about 2 a.m. We were pepped off our nuts on sweets and crisps and Coke. And we said, let's put something else on. And we watched one episode of Farscape picked at random. And it was this episode. So my introduction to Farscape was watching this semi-coherent, drug-sex-fueled nightmare at 2 a.m, full of sugar, in a strange place, having a Ben, weird. So
it's bizarre.
Oh, it's one of the weirdest hours of television you'll ever see. So Crichton, Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic World, Michael Crichton, Carl Drago, Worf, Gigi. That actress's real name is just as sci-fi as her character name.
Yeah.
And a new character at this point, Jewel.
Yeah.
Jewel, who's
just another sexy teen.
She's an Australian backpacker, basically, in space.
Yeah.
She's an alien Australian backpacker in space who gets swept up with the crew. They go down to a sex planet. They go down to the planet of P. Diddy.
Oh.
And they essentially...
Current,
topical. Yeah, very, very current, very relevant. And they essentially all get roofied.
Yep.
And they get roofied and their sex fluids get drained out of them on a weird bondage chair. And now, Chris Claremont was there that day. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but...
Probably not.
Because Ben, this is so Chris Claremont. It has a weird sex bondage chair. It has people getting their sex fluids drained out of them. It has a special magic sauce that can change your appearance. These are all Chris Claremont's things.
Chris Carey, I could be anything you want. Just give me the special appearance changey sauce, please.
Yeah, that'll give me tentacles or weird sex protrusions. So it's pretty boilerplate as far as a plot goes, because it's not about the plot. The two girls get kidnapped and the two boys have to find them, which was normal in the early 2000s.
Perfectly normal.
But what's bizarre about it is from step one, from the opening moment, the camera work speeds up and slows down. It repeats shots. It Dutch angles everything. It flashes forwards and backwards. It is one of the most disconcerting hours of television you'll ever see.
It's a fucking fever dream.
It's an absolute sugar party fever dream of an episode. And out of context, I always thought, wow, Farscape is weird. But 20 years later, watching this again, in context, wow, Farscape is weird.
Yeah, no, Farscape is so weird. Like, it really is. Like, we joke about stuff like that all the time, Michael. Oh, writers love putting their fetishes in shows. But Jesus Christ, Michael.
Oh, non-stop on this.
There's some alien perverts on Farscape. They were really into it.
Someone had to make that sex chair, Ben. Someone had to come up with that.
Look, Michael, there's no way that someone didn't have that at home and just bring it to set and get caught out. Fucking the showrunner got caught out.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's this in your trailer? Oh, it's for an episode. It's for the plot. for the plot. For the plot, mate. Yeah. And I mean, it's bizarre. It really is. But it's freaky and it's good and it establishes everything we want. But that, Michael, that was the episode for me where I was just like, oh my God, John Crichton is Star-Lord. We were robbed.
Yeah.
We were robbed.
Yeah. No, I thought Chris Pratt was a very good Star-Lord in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But
before they nerfed the Christ out of him.
Oh, they into him as far as I can tell, unfortunately.
Hey. Chris P. Rat.
Chris P. Rat, son of Christ. But yes, Ben Browder, Michael Crichton, the character Michael Crichton is a very prototypical Star-Lord character.
Yeah.
It's the same story. He's a human lost in space who becomes a captain of a motley crew of weird space weirdos.
But even his costume at points, Michael, must have been inspiration. The half jacket he wears sometimes, the kind of flak jacket thing with the red stripes on it. He sometimes wears the long duster when he goes down to planets and stuff. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, lads.
He's got his little blaster.
He's got Winona, the gun, you know, fascinating stuff. But yes, weird as fuck. Good for establishing that Farscape is something very different from other sci-fi shows of its time.
How did they? Like the other
Australia.
thing is Australia. That is exactly what it is. Australia.
It's Australia.
It's such the language in this episode is salty as shit as well. Like there's no shyness in this show in talking about sex or talking about genitals or talking about pissing and shitting and vomiting, and this is not a demure or mindful show.
It is not.
It's pretty flat out gross. Anyway, Ben, I think it's worth talking about the love story side of things.
Yeah.
And the episode that we most got kind of recommended for looking at the love story was look at the princess.
Yeah, so that's a 3-part arc, Michael, and it comes in 3 parts. Now I've only watched the 3rd part because that's the one that we were recommended that kind of plays with this concept.
Yes,
but this also has some of the most highfalutin speculative concepts I've ever seen. Like the sentient statue prison is like, you know, so mind-blowing.
Weird stuff. So long story short, John ends up on a planet where they want to breed with him. And it turns out that he's capable of interbreeding with this planet of very sexy people.
Oh,
and
no.
He's like, no, mate. Oh, I don't want to. So
what are you going to do, John?
Their system of governance is based around stability. And they ensure this stability by marrying off a couple, having them artificially inseminated before they take office. And then when they take office as statues.
Yeah.
that are frozen in movement, but their brain and minds are still alive. And they
can be contacted.
And they can be communicated with by earpiece. And they can see and hear and experience everything. Then, very quickly, the baddies chop John's head off.
Yeah. So this introduces a few different things that are going on. So a few episodes, well, no, many episodes prior to that, Michael, we were introduced to the antagonist Scorpius. And Scorpius is brilliant. Talking about fucking space bondage kinks.
They just got Chris Claremont in and said, Chris, just draw us quick sketch, your psychosexual nightmare, please.
So Scorpius is a peacekeeper lieutenant, or he's a high-ranking peacekeeper.
He's their Darth Vader.
He's their Darth Vader, exactly. Arguably better, in my mind, than Darth Vader, but we'll get into that another time.
He's their Darth Vader from Star Wars, the first one, A New Hope.
Yeah.
He's their, like, weird experiment enforcer black suit guy.
Yeah, and he's a half and half character, because he's half of
Scarran.
the Scarran, and he's half Sebaccian, isn't it? Isn't that what it's...
Yes.
That's the mix. And we kind of get a glimpse behind the curtain of what he is in terms of being a hodgepodge creature. And we get to see Scarrans in action. And again, this is a great showcase of just how much
Muppetry.
Jim Henson's puppetry and prosthetics does for creating aliens. Because Scarrans are fucking weird. They're weird fish, mora eel creatures. Like, I don't know what you call them.
Creatures, yeah.
They're fabulous. And yeah, so basically the Scarrans are trying to manipulate the government of this planet.
Yes.
And they're trying to do that by installing their own... They've made a deal with one of the princes in line for the throne, and they want him to take the place. And of course, John Crichton comes in, fucking space cowboying. Yeah. And he's like, yahoo!
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, maybe this guy. Oh, look at me, boys. Hey! And one of my favorite things is that there's a character in part 1 and part 2, and she's the princess that decides to marry John. Yes. And that's when he gets encased as a statue. She doesn't get any feature in the third part of the
statue.
thing.
She's a statue now, Ben. She's a statue.
It's fabulous. It is fabulous. So one of the things about that is Scorpius ends up rescuing John. His head gets cut off by a Scarran. He gets dumped in an acid vat.
Yeah.
And all we hear is that he'll be gone in no time, but it turns out that the statues are coated in a very special thing that stops them from melting down, which I thought the prince would know, but he doesn't. And then Scorpius picks him up, but he gets taken out by sexy assassin lady who's posing as a courtesan or something. I can't keep up with it,
Ben, I couldn't keep track, to be honest. Yeah, just suspiciously sexy assassin. Whose lines are really weirdly overdubbed, actually.
Oh,
the actress must have made a balls of it.
They're bad. And yeah, anyway, it ends up being a race against the clock because Scorpius has to align himself with Dargo to try and beat the Scarran from destabilizing the government, right?
Yeah.
But what I like about this episode, and what I think works really well for this episode, Michael, is that it shows you that there's so much grey here and that none of it is black and white. Because Dargo is a warrior first, and in order to get his end goal, he's quite happy to align with Scorpius.
Oh, yeah.
To prevent the Scarrans from completing their task. And Scorpius, by the same merit, is like, yeah, fuck it. I mean, if it stops the Scarrans, I'm on board. I'll be your pal.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting from that point of view, you know, because at the same time, Scorpius is a huge trauma for John because earlier in the seasons, he's tortured by Scorpius.
And he's in his head. In his
head. Yeah, he lives in his head, basically, rent-free, Michael.
Yeah, rent-free, as the youth would say today.
As the youth would say. But it's a great episode for that, and it shows all these weird things. And then it shows, of course, as you were saying, because the reason we recommended this is because it progresses the love story. Aeryn is forced to go off with essentially Ken from the Barbie movie.
Or the Ben Colopy character, as I was calling.
Climbs the rocks. Falls off the rocks because he's a fucking tool.
He's a fucking absolute tool bag. Gives her a big kiss, and she's like, "Oi, Mate, don't be kissing people. And he's like, I can't help kissing people I find attractive. It's me, Ben Cullaby, he says.
Get fucked, you tosspot.
Then he falls off the cliff because he's useless and he's hyping up his own abilities.
That is arguably the more Ben Colby aspect of that. When I first met Mick, I told him I could podcast, ladies and gentlemen, and here we are.
He said, don't worry about it. I'll do this edit. It'll be tight.
It'll be tight. But yeah, so it progresses that. Not for John Crichton at all. He gets to go off and ride sexy assassin lady for some reason on the beach, while Aeryn is hauling a fucking useless Ken doll through the fucking desert.
Yeah, fucking muppet. The other thing that happens in this episode is Jana gets tied up again. They must have had Chris Claremont hanging around.
Shock. Jana is bondaged and hung above an acid pit.
Yeah, like, oh, Chris, you must have enjoyed this one too.
One of the things I enjoy about that, Michael, is they constantly find ways for John Crichton to get in zingers for pop culture on Earth. Because Dargo is forced to save Jana as she falls towards the pit.
I don't know if he's forced to. I think he
John Crichton just goes, "How Batman was that?"
Yeah, it's great.
There's tons of those.
Fabulous.
And it's fab.
Anyway, the romance thing is that they both go off and learn about love. John learns that he has a daughter who he'll never meet.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Aeryn learns that most men are fucking useless, and maybe John Crichton is actually a good egg.
Compared to the other men in the galaxy that she has found. Yeah. Look, as one commenter pointed out to us, Michael, this is essentially a love story, and it progresses at different stages and has a few 1 step forward, 2 steps back moments, you know, as it goes through. But overall, we're kind of rooting for John and Aeryn to get it on.
No, Aeryn. Yeah, Aeryn.
Is it Aeryn? Was I right the first time?
No.
No?
No,
just no?
But no.
Just no, that wasn't. Okay, right. Okay.
Anyway, Ben, one more episode.
Right, go on, you pick.
Oh, so there's 2, right?
Yeah.
I love the episode Eat Me. Because it is my favourite genre, Ben. You know this about me.
Space mystery!
It's a fucking abandoned spaceship with weird gribbly creatures in space. The crew land on an abandoned spaceship and there's something horrible there. And you've got John and Crichton. No, they're the same person. You've got John and Dargo running off to try and solve it, sending the women back to the pod so that they're safe. Very early 2000s. And it has one of the most awful and terrifying scenes where the pilot on this other Moya is traumatized beyond being able to speak properly. And John eventually figures out that the pilot doesn't have any arms. And John says to her, "Don't worry though, your arms will grow back. Pilot's arms grow back." And over the course of a few conversations, he realizes that the creatures on the ship are keeping the pilot alive, chopping bits of it off to eat and then letting it grow back and then chopping more bits. And the pilot says, "They're eating me." And it is horrific.
It's horrific.
Absolutely awful. And also, that's another episode where Jana gets captured and tied up.
Oh, sure. Look, it never ends.
Never fucking ends.
I was watching that, Michael, and going, this is Mick Leonard's favourite episode because it's space. It's space. There's something creepy going on that ugly buggly spaceship.
What's creepy going on in that spaceship? It is my personal favourite episode. But I think the kind of, not the consensus, but I think there's a better episode for a quintessential Farscape episode.
Go on.
And that's Different Destinations.
Okay, go on.
So this is a later season episode. Jeanne isn't around anymore. I don't know why. I don't know where she's gone. But John, Aeryn, Dargo, Carl Dargo, Jewel, the Australian backpacker in space, and Stark raving lunatic Stark are down visiting.
I love Stark.
Stark's a great character. So he's a lunatic, basically, who he's their empath. He's their replacement empath for Jeanne. They're on a planet, and on this planet you can use a special headset to view the past.
Oh yeah,
classic. And this planet is famous for having a kind of historical moment of peace, where like a heroic character, a heroic human character, or Sebacian, I guess, character, made the ultimate sacrifice to achieve peace between two species.
Yeah.
And they accidentally time traveled themselves back to that moment.
Oops.
And realized that this guy is no hero. And everything and anything that they do changes the future for the worse. And it's a desperate scramble for them to undo the changes that they've made to the timeline. And it is full of character moments. For example, Jules' character is she gets shot with an arrow, makes a nuisance of herself, and they send her away. And it's like, yeah,
Classic.
that makes sense. Classic Australian backpacker. Ruined many a hostile experience for many a generation. But take that, Australia. What was I saying?
You really stuck it to them there,
I
Mark.
really
You got
stuck
'em.
it to Australia there, Ben. But they have to basically make sure that this tragic series of events unfolds the way it's supposed to. And there's some fabulous scenes where Aeryn, who is a consummate soldier and professional, has to guide this young guy who's not a hero
At all.
Not at all. He's a cook and a bit of a coward, and he wants her. He's not a coward in a bad way. He's not a bad character. He's a nice guy, but he's not a war hero. And she has to guide him into unknowingly making this sacrifice.
Yes.
So he thinks he's going to be fine as she sends him off to do a simple errand. And then he inevitably gets killed. And she knows that she's caused this. And it's an incredible bit of character work and a really good, solid acting from everyone.
Yeah.
And tells you so much about this character. It's a very Doctor Who-esque thing. But one thing that Doctor Who lacks that I think Farscape is stronger in is Farscape will let the goodies lose.
Oh, plenty.
So, unfortunately, they changed the past too much. And the original series of events goes that the soldiers surrender and leave, and then the attacking aliens let everyone live because there's no combatants there.
The Venic Horde.
The
leave them
Horde,
be.
Yeah. So unfortunately, they changed the situation. They leave reassuring the non-combatants, the nuns and nurses and children. They leave reassuring them, and it's John in particular who is the one who does this, reassuring them that everything will be fine, and because they're surrendering peacefully, the Horde won't kill them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a happy ending. But then they go back to the future, and John is sitting morose as a motherfucker on the ground, and Aeryn goes over to kind of console him, but console him in a very Farscape-ish way, because this isn't a very soft series.
No, not
She
at all.
basically just goes, "What's wrong with you then?" And he looks through the headset again, and they've changed the past so that when the Horde broke in, they had fought back. The Farscape guys being there had made the fight back more successful, so therefore the Horde were more bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
And everyone is killed. All of the innocent characters, the children, the little girl that had convinced them not to kill Crichton and that Argo had befriended, is killed. And the episode essentially closes on their screams.
Brutal
as everyone
stuff.
is slaughtered.
Brutal stuff from Farscape.
Oh, absolutely brutal stuff.
More like traumatic Scarscape, am I right, Mike?
Oh, more like bloody trauma. Yours was better.
Yeah, you see, I had time to think about it while you were spinning your wheels, you see.
Benjamin.
I was working it out. Yeah.
Let's give a quick shout out, because one of the Redditors gave us a great list. One of the Redditors is called Deirdre, maybe? D-E-I or D. You know, people on the internet with their weird names. And they gave us a great little blog post having a look at this very question. Now, that user came down on 8 episodes, which a lot of Farscape fans we're kind of can't do this in 5. Can't summarize
Can't do this in 5.
But we might link that blog post below.
Oh, go on, I'll stick it in, Michael. You've already sent it to me. I'll put it in the description down below. Ladies and gentlemen,
What?
you can find loads of stuff down below in that description, including, but not limited to, our bloody Instagram link.
Oh, hop up on it.
Hop up on it. Our TikTok link.
I don't know. Hop up on it.
Yeah, you can find our other website, www.sherlocksurelistenpodcast.acast.com down there as well.
Yeah, that's where all the actual updated stuff is.
Yeah, you can find all that down below. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find the link to our Discord where we'll chat about all things popular and cultural. You can find it there and check it out. You'll also find links to our other podcasts, like Collecting Issues, the monthly comic book club, where we take a look at one comic a month and we dissect it and break it down. You'll find a link to the Discord down there as well for that one.
This month we're having a look at a festive Friday.
Yeah, we're taking a look at Friday from Ed Brubaker and Mario Vicenti. And then there's probably other stuff, but I can't remember.
Benjamin, the TV show I couldn't remember earlier was Lex.
Lex! Oh, do you remember Lex?
Yeah, you
Lex.
hated it.
I hated it.
You
I
absolutely hated it.
I did. I hated it. I did. I hate sex, ladies and gentlemen. I hate sexy ships. Don't like it.
He does. He hates sexy ships. He doesn't want sex on his spaceships.
I want a nice, clean spaceship.
Nice,
through
clean
space.
spaceship. You want to be able to shine a black light around it, and everything is clean and sterile.
Don't want a patch, ladies and gentlemen, on my ship. But that's it. That's it for me. Michael, that's it for this week. I'm knackered. Oh, it's a Sunday evening here, Michael. I've ruined the recording schedule as usual by changing things around, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm very tired.
But look, at least we got to spend the last week watching Farscape, which is one of the better things we watched.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. Pretty decent. Ladies and gentlemen, you can suggest other episodes and things like that to us because we'll be doing another Quintessential for December. So find us, follow along, and give us your pick for the next Quintessential. We'd love to hear from you. Go on. Goodbye.
Go on, you
Get
will.
out of here.
See you
Go
now.
on.
Go on,
You will now.
Go on.
Lads, you will.
You
You will now.
we should do a spaceship program, but an Ireland spaceship program.
Yeah, Ireland, the last bunch of lads to get it together in the space race, and
Yeah.
it's them being made fun of by all the other nations in space. That'd be good. I'd
They
watch
just
that.
Crashing the ship into asteroids because they're bombing it around on fucking
We could
Saturday
probably-
night with a few pints in them.
We could probably try and cash in on all the other comedies that use Irish people as stereotypes, so we'll call it bloody Commander Ted or something like that. And put it in space.
Very
And there'll
good.
be a drunk navigator and an
Fucking-
idiot first mate and other things
Fucking
like
I'd watch it, Ben. We get Paul Mescal from
that.
Gladiator.
Paul Mescal would do it for us. He'd
Yeah.
be our John Crichton, but in this, he'd be John McCarthy from Ennis.
It's John McCarthy from Ennis, but in space. That's it. We're going.
Goodbye.
See you next week.